Go.
Hello to Mr. Hayden and his followers on YouTube. My name is Jeff Kapaska. I am a friend of Mr. Hayden's and I watched his episode about gardening this morning. Thought I would provide a little bit of in the field viewing for your pleasure. So we're going to start with one of my raised bed gardens right here. This is a new one that I just put together a couple of years ago. You can see there's a little bit of ash in there. I just threw that in there after this past fall, having a few fire pit adventures with my family, and add a little potash to the garden to help with the nutrient levels there. And we're just going to walk around my backyard. Right here I've got some hostas that are ready to come up, but interspersed among the hostas I also grow mint. And so I have some herbs, I have some vegetables, a variety of things. Over here you can see my tulips are ready to come up, and I also have a trellis here right outside of the kitchen window. I am a participant in the local hop growing community for one of our local breweries here in Ames, and so I grow hops on this trellis that they use to make some beer. Mr. Hayden talked about a variety of things this morning. One of the things that he talked about was watering your garden, and so right here you can see off of the corner of my house I have two 55-gallon barrels, and I use these to collect rainwater. So I can collect 100 gallons of rainwater right here, and I've actually collected, I think, 300 gallons so far this spring, and I'll show you in a little bit where I put that water. Just walking around the backyard here, Mr. Hayden talks a little bit about using grass clippings and other kinds of mulch to keep the weeds down in your garden. So we can see a number of leaf bags right here. In the fall, I always collect my leaves and my grass clippings, and I let it sit over the winter like this, and then in the spring when I plant my garden, I have all of this mulch available to help insulate the ground, to keep the weeds down, and to be ready for my garden in the spring. Even though the grass grows pretty well in the spring, I find that I never have enough for my gardens to have enough mulch. So I save it in the fall and use it in the spring. Actually found me today on a project today. I've had my garden back here for about 10 years, and some of my raised beds that I built with some salvaged lumber about 10 years ago have worn out. So I'm right in the process right now of salvaging some more wood from a barn and redoing some of my raised beds. So right here you'll see a 4x6 foot raised bed, and I've got this one almost completed. Last year I grew tomatoes in this one, and so this coming year I'll probably do something different, like carrots, broccoli, something like that. Around in this berm, all the way up behind this wall, is where I grew my potatoes last year. So they really like this area. I've got some good drainage underneath, and so I kind of switch between potatoes and onions in this area. They don't need a whole lot of light to grow really well, so being a little bit shaded behind this fence and these other raised beds, they do just fine. So potatoes there, and a variety of raised beds. You can see I have 3 of them through here, and I grow tomatoes, peppers, lettuce. One of the things I really like to do is in between like 2 rows of tomatoes or 2 rows of peppers, I'll put kohlrabi, because that's a cooler season vegetable, and I'll do that early in the spring, and those will be finished by the time that the peppers or the tomatoes grow tall enough to really shade those out. Here in my urban garden, I also have a cherry tree. This is a sour cherry tree, and you can see in this raised bed, just last year I started some ever-bearing strawberries. In a little while we'll go to my other strawberry bed too. Up here at the top of the steps in the upper corner of the yard, you can see my additional water storage for my rainwater. I've got 6 55-gallon barrels here, in addition to the 2 you saw before, and 2 more on this other corner of the house. So I have a total of 10 55-gallon barrels, or over 500 gallons of rainwater that I can store up in the spring, and I can actually in these gardens go about a month without water and still keep my crops in my yard watered just with the rainwater that I've stored up from the spring. This is a larger, kind of more normal garden rather than the raised bed garden. I tend to grow a variety of different things in here, including some of the more viney things that need to spread out. You can see right here, I have a hog panel or cattle panel, and every year what I do with this is I just pop it up and make a trellis, and I grow squash on this. And then behind it, on this fence, you can see I have some more lattice material. On this back part of the garden, I usually grow cucumbers on one side and sweet potatoes on the other. And I do that, I alternate that every year, and then just a variety of zucchini and peppers and tomatoes, onions, carrots in this area right here. Moving on down to this other part of the yard. Back here, I've got my raspberry vines. And so just a little area here where we grow raspberries every year, one of the perennials in my garden. Got two more raised beds right here that I'm in the process of rebuilding right now. You can see the strawberry patch behind them, the other rain barrel collection, and right here, the leftovers from last year's rhubarb, or not rhubarb, but asparagus, and waiting anxiously for our asparagus to start up. So not a huge yard here, but a nice sized backyard, but just an example of something that you can do to have an urban garden and grow food rather than grass everywhere in your yard. So thank you for listening.